Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you always, actually, for stopping by. I'm grateful. Let me first mention I'm doing a Mind Speak tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that enormously. You're welcome. It's at the Intercontinental Nairobi. We even serve breakfast from 9:30 and we'll start at 10 in the morning. It's a broad sweep of things, the new age of populism, Brexit, the pound, geopolitics, looking at the photographs of the G20, the comeback of Putin, the Middle East. I call it a moment of elevated geopolitical friction, the South China Sea, Africa post the rising, looking at the markets, policy making errors, looking at the big trends across the continent, and then coming home to Kenya to try and dive into what's actually been happening. And you're most welcome to come. It's free. We serve breakfast, and we're normally done by 12. I like this photograph back from Africa. This image is a real highlight. My best result in 3 years of using remote control cameras. David Yarrow. It must be the Amboseli, which is about 3 hours drive from Nairobi, and I do love it because you have the Mount Kilimanjaro in the background, and these enormous elephants, herds and herds of them, and it is a beautiful place to visit. Macro Thoughts Fed Policy Loop graphic by Liz Ann Saunders, and it's felt like that, hasn't it? Some kind of Groundhog Days. Talk, and quarter point is all that's ever happened. I think they should be raising another quarter point this September. It's not clear that there will. High frequency data has softened considerably, but let's keep our eyes and ears open. Carl the Fog says to San Francisco, just passing through, great city. We went there many years ago, hired a car, drove all the way down on that route. I can't remember, is it 101, 66? But you're driving on the edge of the American continent, and you can sort of understand that great sort of arc of American literature which speaks to possibility and, being chosen. You realize when you drive down there, it's pretty understandable. Life is not only full of sound and fury, it also has butterflies, flowers, art. Claude Simon. What is that feeling when you're driving away from people and they recede on the plain till you see their specks dispersing? It's the too huge world vaulting us, and it's goodbye, but we lean forward to the next crazy venture beneath the skies. Jack Kerouac on the road, and that was triggered by this tweet from History Pics on the road with Jack Kerouac plotting his route in 1947 to 1950. Nothing behind me, everything ahead of me, as is ever so on the road. And then I like this one, the road must eventually lead to the whole world. And my favorite Robert Frank photograph remains this one. And Kerouac described it as follows in his introduction to The Americans, which is a collection of photographs by Robert Frank. Kerouac describes his photograph as a long shot of night road, arrowing forlorn into immensities and flat off. Impossible to believe America in New Mexico under the prisoner's moon. And playing on that theme, I was writing about a road that I'd taken from my childhood. In January 2013, my Christmas holiday ritual is to jump into a car, take the family down to the coast. It's not so easy these days because that road is so busy. The Nairobi-Mombasa road arrows into immensities and is impossible to believe. It retains a near mystical hold on my imagination and connects me to my childhood and beyond. Dad used to once own an Alfa Romeo, of which we were only about 3 in the country. You could never get them fixed. That was part of the problem. And my pilgrimage along that road started then when we used to come from Mombasa. Now, of course, we set off from Nairobi, but the road still has its hold. The landmarks still reach out to me. This time we were swarmed by doves near Imani. See the doves or butterflies at Imani, which was breathtaking. There is still the eerie and deserted, very Oscar Niemeyer building, which might have been a petrol station. It was a restaurant. We stopped at Makindu, which is like being teleported to Amritsar, and on New Year's Day was packed to the rafters. And we always stop at McKinnon Road, where there is a shrine which houses the tomb of Saeed Begali, a Punjabi foreman. At the time of the building of the railway, he was renowned for his strength, and everybody, it's sort of non-denominational now, everyone stops, particularly the drivers, who probably don't want to incur his wrath. Political reflections, decades of politicians' lies led to Brexit, said Jean-Claude Juncker. And he's right, and I was referenced this several times. It was very easy to bash the EU, particularly in the United Kingdom. People did it continuously, both sides. And then you end up with something like Brexit. Listen to this. Reports suggest China may seize Scarborough Shoal during the final weeks of the US presidential election as America's gaze turns inward. President Obama has already warned China about the consequences, and he should remind its leaders that such an attempt would constitute a challenge to the peace and stability of Asia and would force Washington to rethink many areas of cooperation with Beijing. In this article, saying the People's Republic of China is headed on a tragic trajectory that should be familiar to anyone with even a cursory exposure to history. No, Beijing wants more and could soon seek to transform the status quo in Asia, especially in the South China Sea, in its favor. Indeed, recent reports suggest that Beijing's surge for hegemony might be around the corner as its leaders take advantage of a window of opportunity during the final weeks of the US presidential election, as America's gaze turns inward. If China is going to strike in the South China Sea mid-September, right until the November presidential election, could not be a better time, explained a senior US Department of Defense official who agreed to be interviewed if not identified. Or put a different way, another US defense official, again speaking on background, explained Beijing's best window to take advantage of certain trend lines and cement its claim in the South China Seas right after the G20. American newspapers won't give front-page status to a China story during the heart of the election. Well, unless they start shooting, and they won't be that stupid for sure. For Beijing, the timing is perfect. President Xi Jinping is very hard-edged, that's a fact. And evidence of that is why President Obama, for example, was not even given a red carpet when he arrived for the G20. President Obama, of course, in his Sun Tzu way, managed to shrug it off, but the message was there for all to see. Moving on, and that really is a very big risk, and I've been talking about it for a long time, and I still think it's a major flashpoint geopolitical risk. Hillary Clinton, when I'm under the weather, I can afford to take a few days off. Millions of Americans can't. Hillary. She's lost a lot of ground, I'm afraid. Donald Trump has made some tremendous headway, and clearly from the latest polls, and I follow Nate Silver on Twitter, Trump has, in my opinion, the big momentum. The Trump campaign even says he believes Obama was born in the US. He, of course, was one of the prime promoters of the birther story. And I think he's done this signaling, and now he's tacking towards the center. I thought he would have done it earlier, but he's doing it now. Trump says he's cut ties to his company and have his children and executives run it. This is his latest statement. President Obama, of course, is going to use some of his political capital, but it's not clear that it's going to be sufficient. I was reading a piece in The Guardian, but the thesis was, as they said of Gaddafi, the old one, that nothing could be worse than Assad. Want to bet? Going to war is too easy, far too easy. That is the one clear message from the Commons report on David Cameron's 2011 war in Libya. It presents that venture as an ill-conceived vanity project to dust the ingenue Prime Minister with some Arab Spring glory. In reality, it brought untold misery to a country to which Cameron promised peace and democracy. Assad's death warrant is a counterpunch. Secret cables and reports by the US, Saudi, and Israeli intelligence agencies indicate that the moment Assad rejected the Qatari pipeline, military and intelligence planners quickly arrived at the consensus that fomenting a Sunni uprising in Syria to overthrow the uncooperative Bashar was a feasible path to achieving the shared objective of completing the Qatar-Turkey gas link. In 2009, according to WikiLeaks, soon after Bashar rejected the Qatar pipeline, the CIA began funding opposition groups in Syria. The conflict in Syria is not a war in the conventional sense of the word. It is a regime change operation, just like the Libyan Iraq were regime change operations. It's true. This caught my attention this morning. This is what a church in America looks like in 2016. And then Bloomberg was, the Guardian was saying religion in the US is worth more than Google and Apple combined. Religion in the United States is worth $1.2 trillion a year, making it equivalent to the 15th largest national economy in the world, according to a study. Probably quite true. Robert Fisk is saying the first of these mischievous remarks was that the attacks of 9/11 had changed the world forever. Let's move on to the markets. Trader Steph, VIX futures open interest hits all-time high. And I would agree with those who are going long because it seems very suppressed, could pop at any time. And then I like this from Eric Scott Huntsader, how volume, liquidity, and price are related in one chart. Let's move on to the currency markets. The euro dollar 112.34, dollar index 95.31, Japanese yen 101.96, Swissy 0.9721, the pound around 131.95, the Aussie 0.7503, and Euro rupee 66.875. Recovered from that scare that they were going to devalue it. South Korean won 11.2254, the real 330.12, Egyptian pound 887.94, and the rand has improved from areas above 14.50 to 14.21.41. US data has reduced the chance of a Fed rate hike next week to just 18%. Be a little bit of a buyer of that. Even probability for December hike just about 50%. Dollar index, let me put up a one-year chart. Look, we're at 95.33. We're softening up because the recent high-frequency data has been soft. Sterling, I'll put up a one-year chart. Very bullish about that. Everyone I know is bearish. I was listening to Bloomberg yesterday. They're all talking it down still. I think Carney took the froth off this week, but this is a buy opportunity. And I would put the stop at 127.50. Airline passenger traffic grew 6.4% last year, the most in 5 years, unfortunately. Africa lagged that, and I think that's because of a lot of currency challenges. For all the world's economic malaise, there's a bright spot above the clouds. Airline passenger traffic grew 6.4% last year, the most in 5 years. Asia Pacific in particular growing very fast. Deutsche Bank shares sank 8% at the open this morning after the Department of Justice threatened the German lender with a $14 billion fine. 5-year probability jumped to 15.8%. That's the default probability. Thank you, Holger. Commodity markets, interesting piece in Bloomberg, how commodities may end 2016 with a whimper after a first half rally, saying that the index has fallen 6.5% since the end of June. As of Thursday, losses were led by a 41% plunge for most active hog futures, followed by a 23% drop for soybean meal. Crude oil is down 9.1% over the same dates, saying that prices from last December 31 to June 30 were pulled higher by a 25% jump in gold, similar advance in natural gas, the biggest components of the Bloomberg Commodity Index. Let's see how this plays out. Gold, 1304 areas key were around the 1313 level. Crude oil, not looking good. I put up a one-year chart. Look, you can see those 2 times have come down here. So it's either going to bounce $5 or it's going to go to a new 2016 low. Take your pick. Many Indians believe the elephant-headed god Ganesh can remove all obstacles in their lives. This is from the New York Times. I like the photograph. Narendra Modi met Mr. J.Y. Lee, the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics. I like the photograph there as well. Foreign investors pulled money from Philippine stocks for a 16th day on Thursday, longest streak in 7 years. Let's move on to sub-Saharan Africa, or for a moment we'll stay north. US Marines are launching thermobaric missiles in Libya. Thermobaric missiles in Libya, goodness. African citizens are calling for long-serving presidents to step down. Look at this image that ISS have produced. According to Twaweza Nisisi, 96% of citizens approve or strongly approve of the way President Magufuli has performed since coming into office. Big number. Interesting reports come out by McKinsey suggesting that job creation is outpacing labour force growth of 3.8% a year versus 2.8%. This is in Africa. I don't find that credible. I think the population growth is outpacing job creation. But it's an interesting report that they put out. Africa Rising narrative gained momentum around 2010, talking about, the McKinsey remain optimistic. They're saying the story of Africa sinking is overdone. Strip out Nigeria, South Africa, North Africa, and the rest of the continent has not slowed. Growth in sub-Saharan Africa, minus its two biggest economies, actually accelerated from 4.1% in 2000 through 2010 to 4.4% from 2010 to 2015. Countries such as Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Ivory Coast growing faster than that. Saying that granted Nigeria and South Africa are pretty big lions to be refusing to budge. Some reckoning Africa is about to become the world's fastest urbanizing region. Over the next decade, nearly 150 million more Africans will be living in cities. And by 2034, Africa will have the world's biggest working age population. More people can be bad news if there are no jobs. But McKinsey's research suggests that job creation is outpacing labour force growth. I'm not sure about that at all. Other household spending, it predicts, will grow 3.8% a year to reach 2.1 trillion by 2025, with half of that occurring in just 75 cities. Singles out technology, mobile phone use in several countries is already on a par with the US. By 2020, smartphone penetration is expected to rise from 18% today to 50%. New forms of algorithm-derived credit and access to services paid for with electronic money, such as off-grid solar power, sees the potential for technology to transform health and education. Africa post-2000 is reminiscent of China post-1979, when Deng Xiaoping's pro-market reforms began, and India post-1991, following the dismantling of the licensed Raj. In those countries, so too, there was a lag between inflection point and general recognition that something definitive had changed. Africa's story is necessarily messier. There is no single government driving change. Interesting. Charlie Robertson, among 36 African countries, Nigeria tourism revenues only beat the DRC in 2014. Ghana did 25 times better. So I had a look into that McKinsey report. It's bullish. They have to be. But I think it's interesting. I do think that we're in a post-rising world, and it has tremendous impact on how things will progress from here. It puts a lot more risk on policymakers. When every boat's being floated, you can make mistakes. You can't now. But nevertheless, of course, I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't bullish. South African all share up 2.92% this year. Dollar versus rand. Have a look at this chart. Gives you a clear view. We're in this 14.20 area. There is this toing and froing in the markets, a push for yield, which has seen a spillover into emerging and frontier markets, but at the same time you have this domestic political risk. You have Moody's downgrading 5 parastatals. It's not straightforward, and you have President Zuma, I think, who doesn't know how to sort of sit down and take stock. He can only keep pushing forward. The Egyptian stock market is up 13.89% this year. A $31 million scandal with Nigeria's ex-First Lady shows the scale of Buhari's anti-corruption battle. This is in courts. Patience Jonathan, colourful wife, that's a good way to describe her, has become the latest high-profile Nigerian embroiled in a corruption-related scandal. And here's another photograph of President Buhari shaking hands with Mr. DJ Rewani. Nigerian oil shares down 3.2% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange is down 10.86% this year. The source, who I follow on Twitter, Zimbabwean bond notes start circulating by the end of October. They've run out of money. They're now at the very bounds of what is possible. I don't know how this is going to work. Of course, it must be very irritating when you look at places like Japan, where it's worked wonderfully well. The drug trade in Kenya brings in upwards of $400,000 a day thanks to healthy demand for cat, which is a Somalian market. Foreign policy. Interesting to see a figure on it. Spotted Swaziland school brass band and students marching for inclusive, equitable and quality education for all. I like the photograph. Coming to Kenya, we pledged allegiance to the Caliph of the Muslims, the Emir of the Believers, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, said a handwritten note that was discovered by the Kenyan police. In the note, written on the lined page of an exercise book, the women call themselves Maysara, Ma'bad, and Sa'ad, which the officers said was believed to be their aliases. The officer said the note was found in the house they stayed in. Know that Islamic State soldiers are everywhere, the note said. The interesting thing to me has been the way the Islamic State has been using women at the sharp end of quite a few of these operations. Look at Europe, look here. I wonder if women's rights comes into it at the same time. Interest rate caps boon for big Kenyan banks, says James Wangi, who took the offensive position all day yesterday. A decision to cap Kenyan interest rates may favour the biggest banks, as small lenders will struggle to raise cheap deposits to fund lending. According to him, at least 30 of Kenya's 42 lenders may have difficulty paying the minimum for deposits as demanded by a new law on interest rates that came into effect on September the 14th. We know that law was spoken about it. Tier 2 banks and those with low deposit rates will struggle to attract deposits, will struggle to lend. The microfinance institutions and savings and credit cooperative societies, or SACCOs, will struggle to defend their market share. Large lenders have a weighted index of 5% and above. KCB, Diamond Trust, Commercial Bank of Africa qualified as large lenders in 2015. Some lenders intend to do away with savings accounts because of the new legislation. He's saying he's got 100 billion shillings for additional lending, so he's telling everybody he's going to pull out the bazooka and he's going to start shooting it. Banks refusing deposits are shooting themselves in the head, not in the leg. Banks can only solve this problem by volumes. So I concluded yesterday, and if you're going to have a look at the rich wrap-ups from yesterday, but I've sort of repeated it a little bit today. He played a very offensive game, and I think really what's in his sights is CBA. This is his response to what he feels might have been slightly targeted. Mobile-based loans to be capped at 14.5%. Highly disruptive move on the part of Dr. Mwangi. Equity Bank has interpreted this new law to include all credit facilities extended to customers by such institutions. This includes loans through mobile phones or through other third-party platforms, or collaborations with mobile network operators, credit card facilities, as well as microfinance loans. You can't partner with a non-bank institution, a fintech or telecom, and pretend you can be outside this law, he said. Then, late in the afternoon, he came and said that those comments about Tier 2 banks. KCB reacted by informing existing and potential customers that the pricing for their local currency loan facilities has been repriced, including KCB M-Pesa, KCB Mobi loans, local currency deposits pursuant to the Banking Amendment Act. This looks like a major Schumpeter moment to me, and I called it a Schumpeter moment in August when I was writing my piece over the weekend, the first weekend after we'd had the bill come into effect. According to Schumpeter, the gale of creative destruction describes the process of industrial mutation that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. I'm saying a gale of creative destruction is now blowing through the banking sector. Within the first 8 days of the enactment of the law, investors with shares listed on the NSE lost 243 billion shillings. That's reduced now to 215 as of yesterday. Equity Bank is down 31.75% year to date. KCB, take a look, down about the same. Nairobi All Share down 9.66% year to date, but it's bounced 1.52% since closing at a 2014 low on the 5th of this month. NSE 20 is down 19.82% this year, but up 3.94% since closing at a 2011 low on August 30. WPP Scan Group has rallied 4.68% yesterday. It's closed at a 7-week high. It's up 13.43% in September. Serena traded another big slug of shares, and it's been trading heavily. Have a look at the volume chart. At this level of down 28% year to date. It's the only tourism pure play at the NSE. I like this photograph from Mombasa. You took my heart away. The Whiskey Whisperer. Kenya Airways has closed at a 5-week high at 395. It's up 14.49% this month. KenGen Kenya closed at a 16-week high. It's up 14.166% this month. The parabolic trajectory of Transcentury's price rebound flattened yesterday. That's up 151.11% since the 25th of August. I like this photograph of a golden sunrise over Lake Baringo. Ex-Uchumi CEO Jonathan Siano is to record a police statement. What an incredible story. He was riding so high once upon a time. And I had a buyer for it, and I couldn't understand why he was brushing me off, frankly. Former Uchumi Supermarket CEO Jonathan Siano is this morning expected to record a statement with the police explaining his alleged role in the manipulation of the retail chain's books during his time at the helm. I think he'll send a big statement if something's done about it. And I shall leave that there. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I'll be there from about 9 o'clock if you want to grab hold of me. Looking forward to it tremendously. Still just finishing it off in point of fact. Once again, thank you for stopping by.